Hello, crypto friends. Checking in on the space. We're going to look at the usual crew: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, Binance, TRX, ONT, NEO, and EOS. So a little bit of a development overnight in terms of the bulls attempting to see continuation on Bitcoin, but rejecting, and now looking like we're going to see some daily consolidation. So essentially what played out, if we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, is the bulls saw consolidation. We tested the exponential 12-period support and held it. We tried to make our way towards continuation. 40.37 on Coinbase was the level to break. The bulls could not break that level, and now we're pulling back with a double bottom at the low of this 4-hour consolidation. So that must hold support is 39.36, and it's only must hold in the short term because if it breaks, as it looks like it will, more likely than not, we're going to look for daily consolidation. So lose the 4-hour uptrend, and we'll zoom out to the daily, and we would then look for a daily higher low to form, noting the closes over the daily 12-period exponential support the last 2 weeks, and also noting that anything above 37.79 is going to be a daily higher low. So most of the sector is beginning to see this consolidation on the daily time frame, looking for higher lows to form, and we're just going to watch and ensure that there's no red flags in terms of significant bear volume or breaks of the daily uptrend. If we lose the daily uptrend, we zoom out to the weekly chart and we look for a weekly higher low to then form. So I ended up making a Litecoin trade yesterday for a small loss, and I will point out what the red flag was. So Litecoin got a bull break. 61.58 was the high, and we got a bull break with follow through there after 4-hour consolidation, holding exponential support, solid 4-hour candlestick going for continuation. I entered on the bull break of 61.58, still using small positions, certainly compared to my stock trading account, and just waiting for more clarity on the weekly time frame, more conviction in the sector before going with larger positions again, like I was playing with back in 2017 and even 2018 on some of those oversold dumps on the 4-hour time frame. But what it was a bull entry, and the first red flag to me had nothing to do with Litecoin. I looked at Bitcoin and I said, we're not breaking that 4-hour resistance, and if Bitcoin does not break 40.37 on this move, that's a red flag for my Litecoin position. So I said to myself, all right, this is consolidation on Bitcoin after the bull break attempt. Looks fine at this point, but if we lose the 15-minute exponential supports, I'm going to exit my Litecoin trade. So I pretty much said if Bitcoin loses the 15-minute exponential supports, I will sell Litecoin because that's going to tell me that Bitcoin is very unlikely to see that bull break on this attempt. So exited for a small loss in Litecoin. Bitcoin then pulled back more significantly, and now Bitcoin is still in the tightening 4-hour pattern, whereas Litecoin has broken a bit more bearish. We lost the support level established at 59.44, and we back tested and then rejected from it, and right now it looks like a 4-hour bear flag on Litecoin. So we zoom out to the daily. The 4-hour trend has been lost. We're looking at a daily higher low to form on Litecoin compared to 53.11, and we're watching the daily exponential supports as well. So the daily uptrends are still intact, and they're not in jeopardy at this point for the vast majority of individual names. And unless that changes, we are just going to be looking for daily higher lows to form. And by unless that changes, again, I mean spikes in bear volume or other red flags. ETH also still weak. So ETH has been the weakest out of those three that we've just looked at for probably 2 weeks at this point. It's been consistently standing out. And it did so yet again, where we had the bull move and instantly pulled back with a huge upper wick on the 4-hour time frame. We didn't hold the exponential support as smoothly as Litecoin and Bitcoin did, and we also dropped to a lower high and lower low. So we're already consolidating on the daily time frame for Ethereum. We can still form a higher low here because anything above 128.90 is a higher low, but it's just much weaker than it is for Bitcoin. And let's just look at this chart, ETH, BTC, and you can see the clear pullback. Pointed this out in the last video to be watching this chart after the double top, and obviously we never saw a break of that resistance. So Ethereum staying weak comparative to Bitcoin, and this equilibrium on the daily time frame for this ETH BTC pairing is going to give us some indication on which name we should be looking at, either bullish or bearish, depending on which direction this equilibrium breaks. So if this equilibrium breaks bullish, that tells me to be watching for Bitcoin to potentially be bearish on a loss of the daily uptrend, needing weekly further tightening consolidation. Or if this breaks bearish, that tells me that Ethereum is weaker and that Bitcoin is potentially looking to come up and test that weekly recent high. Keeping in mind that this chart can break bullish even with both Ethereum and Bitcoin individually bearish on a US dollar basis. This is just comparing them to each other, of course. So XRP. XRP, after all this tightening range and then the fake out for the bulls, the fake out for the bears, we're right back where we started, pretty much back in the middle of this range. Zooming in for a bit more details, we can see clear 4-hour lower highs, so that's keeping the bears in control of the short term. As long as these 4-hour lower highs remain, the bears have control. Support is down at 3183, followed by 3152, and we have a double top on the 4-hour time frame at 3268. So we're watching very close for a break of the 4-hour lower highs, but at this point, the bears have control, and it's certainly a daily choppy chart with no follow through in either direction and no conviction. Binance consolidating on the 4-hour. There's our lower high and lower low. So we zoom out to the daily and look for a higher low to form on the daily. The last one was at 1456. But just looking at this chart, I see the potential of a rising wedge forming, which would have me a bit cautious, specifically because of the weekly time frame. So I know the weekly longer term pattern is due for consolidation. So I take that into account and I say, okay, what are some clues that could tell me that that's potentially occurring, and looking for that weekly consolidation to get going. And I would draw a resistance line here with a few hits on it, and then I would draw a support line to be watching. And it looks like if I were going to draw this, that's where I would have put it. And it does look like we are battling right on that level. And I put it right here because of all these touches. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, multiple touches on this key support line. That looks like a rising wedge to me on the 4-hour time frame, so we do want to be cautious. Also, the exponential moving averages, the 12 and the 26 period, potentially giving us a bear cross for the first time since the $11, $12 range. So these are multiple factors that have us cautious now on Binance. Weekly chart overextended, potential for a 4-hour rising wedge, which is a bearish pattern, and now the potential of the bear cross of the 12 and 26 period moving average. All things that tell us weekly consolidation could be starting on Binance, but we have to lose the daily uptrend in order to be confident of that. And 1456 is the last daily high or low. So as long as the bulls keep the daily uptrend, they fend off weekly consolidation at this point. But we know it's likely due in the near-term future, so just a cautionary note to the Binance bulls. TRX USDT could not change the daily trend like we're waiting on. So we have our low, high of the bull move. Where's my lines? Higher low at 217, and it looks like our lower high has been set at 2355. So now we just have a standard old equilibrium. We're going to look for a higher low to form compared to 2171, and as we head towards this weekend, we're going to look for a break of this pattern. If it breaks bullish, we have a weekly higher low established, and we're going to be looking for follow through over 2.5 and up towards 3 cents. If we get a bear break, that tells us the weekly higher low has not been established yet, and we're going to look for another leg down, perhaps under 2 cents. So this daily equilibrium is one to be watching on TRX USD for indication of short-term momentum. ONT USD is marching along up to key 120 resistance. Daily inside bar is forming. If we lose the 4-hour uptrend, we're going to be looking at the daily chart to form a higher low. So clearly still a 4-hour higher low pattern here. Looking at support down at 102. Bulls are hoping 104 is a higher low, but we need a little bit more follow through from these 4-hour inside bars. If they break bullish, our new 4-hour higher low will clearly be established. When we do lose the uptrend, the bulls have a ton of space to work with because anything above 87 cents is a higher low, keeping those bulls in control of the daily trend. So names like ONT have a lot of space to work with for the bulls to maintain their daily uptrend, just like Litecoin does. And the more bullish names on the way up have more wiggle room on the way down. EOS is another equilibrium to be watching on the daily. Low, high of the bull move, higher low, lower high, and now we're looking for the higher low compared to 349. Key resistance is 393, and if we just compare real quick to TRX, very similar on the last 2.5 weeks in terms of this pattern that's currently forming. So both of those are worth watching. Look at the volume drop off on EOS. We know that when we break equilibriums, we get a volume spike associated with it, so that's something to be keeping an eye out for. Spike in volume, let's see TRX, similar as well. declining volume. This orange line here is the 20-day average volume, and you can see it's got a clear downslope showing us that the ranges are tightening. NEO is not a tightening inside bar or a tightening equilibrium. We have the low, high, higher low. We got the higher high. Daily consolidation is underway, so without even looking, I know the 4-hour uptrend has been lost. There's the confirmation, lower highs and lower lows. Very weak bull volume on this bounce attempt. Yet another name that looks like the potential of a 4-hour bear flag out there. And we know that on the daily time frame, anything above 845 keeps the bulls in control with a higher low, so the bulls have space to work with, and we're watching the exponential supports trying to hold as well. So bottom line is everybody that we just looked at, aside from XRP is just a wishy-washy mess, but everybody else has daily uptrends or daily clear equilibriums to be watching, so we're going to be looking for a bit more clarity on those trends. Again, lose the daily uptrend, we zoom out to the weekly, and then we'll watch to see how these tightening equilibriums break. Again, those are actually it's EOS and TRX, which are in those tight equilibrium patterns. Hope you had a good weekend. Let's check in on Adventure Time. Do good things out there. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, for this chapter, what are we on? 11? Something. We're heading over south, so just curled around, pretty much entered the middle of the state, Colorado, from the east, went through Boulder, went through Rocky Mountain National Park, went over into Aspen area, and then curled down into the south into Durango. And this is a little colorful rainbow lizard guy on his way. So I went to Mesa Verde National Park, which is a beautiful spot. And you can see how the landscape has changed from the giant mountains into more of a arid, deserty kind of feel. They've got Great Sand Dunes National Park down in this area of the state as well. But this is the area where they built right into the cliffside walls thousands of years ago. And these tribes are so fascinating with what they did. The soft sandstone, you can see where their handholds were as they would climb in and out of these valleys. And they would use them for, I should say, in and out of these, the side of these cliffs. They used them obviously for protection, and they had some really cool construction that's still around these days. And the petroglyphs are everywhere. And petroglyphs are really everywhere in the southwest part of the country, as well as the middle of the country here in Colorado. And it's really cool to just see, to stand literally where someone stood thousands of years ago and drew something that they felt was important enough to try and have it etched into time. And in a lot of instances, there's these common themes, like these swirls. We'll look at some more that I went to in Utah, but there's so many places where you can literally just, drive on a dirt road up to these petroglyphs and check them out with, no fees, no tours, none of that. They're just right there, which exposes them to, graffiti or whatever. But fortunately, some of them are left alone, but a lot of cool different swirl things. We can only speculate as to what they were trying to show. And another cool thing that this tribe of Native Americans did was they pretty much selected seeds, genetic modification in a more natural way, not, splicing genes and stuff, but they would save seeds from certain strains of grass, and they created corn out of a strain of grass. So this is what it looks like in terms of, the valley that they were inside of on the sides of the cliffs. But they would take these strains of grass and save the seeds for the ones that had the biggest, seeds. And then just over thousands of years, they ended up with a crop that had a head of fat corn. And it doesn't look like the corn that we have today, obviously, because that's just using further science to get it to the point where we want it. But a lesser degree, they were using genetic modification and seed selecting to create a crop. So, quickie chapter here. We're going to head on over to Telluride next. I love Telluride. Ended up impromptu stopping at a music festival, the Ride, that they have every year, and met someone through couch surfing. I've never stayed at anybody's place during couch surfing, but got some great tips on volunteering at this music festival and a place on where to camp for free right outside of town. And that was a wonderful, again, just another unexpected stop. It seems like the highlights of my entire trip were all ones that I didn't plan and were all from word of mouth from other people who knew better than I. So we'll head on down there and again, check out Colorado and Utah. Great two states right next to each other. You can make it, a week or two road trip and get a lot of sightseeing. I mean, you could really make it a 2-month road trip if you wanted to, but those two states together, just the fact that they're next to each other and there's so many national parks within a pretty close radius, I would suggest it. So we'll check back in. Hope you have a good rest of your day. See you soon.